We're going to analyze the LockTech Kwikset Smart Key Decoder. We're not really interested in what the pictures are. We're going to do some video on it. So here it is. You can check other websites to see how this thing actually works and how you use it, but we're more interested in how it actually works and what we can see. How does it show these pictures? And here's the Smart Lock Decoder with the cap off. What we are more interested in is how this thing actually works. I mean, the body here has a video camera and stuff in it. It talks to your phone by Wi-Fi. You can see other websites how that works. And you have these little adapters here that determine the spacing of what you're looking for. But how does this little thing actually work? And what are we looking at? So notice here we actually have a little mirror here. This is a little mirror. And this is a teeny little LED here. Now I've turned on the LED here. It's shining white light and it's hitting the mirror here. So that's what's going on here. So we're getting right into it here. We're looking at a Gen 2 smart key cylinder. Notice these projections here. This is partially disassembled. These are the pins that the key lifts up, and they have these little sharp edges here. That's what locks into the wafers and determines what the key bitting is set for this particular lock. Here's another shot. You can see these same little wafer, these little notches here that lock in to the wafers and set the height of these key pins. Notice that the cylinder is now on the lock decoder body and they're all lifted to the maximum height. That's what it does with the way the blank is. It lifts them all up to the maximum height. Now we're sitting inside the cylinder and we have the decoder turned on. So you can see the white light here. Here's the mirror right here. So the mirror is reflecting what we're going to see. But of course I've taken off half of it. But you can see all the key pins here are lifted to the maximum height. Here's another shot. You can see that the LED is really glowing brightly here because we've got right on the angle where the mirror is looking at from the light. That's what goes into the video camera that you see on the machine. So now that we looked at a Gen 2, let's look at a Gen 3 Kwikset smart lock. I pulled the cylinder out. You know, we're not getting into how to disassemble this lock. You should know how to do this already. But you can see here's the little wafers right in here. This little channel here is what aligns with these. That spring on this part slides back and forth and it sets the heights of these. This is the key bitting that I have here, and that's how these pins are set. Now what I've done here is I've pulled out key pin number 5. I pulled it out of here. These are the wafers. This is the slot where the key pin would go, and it's not in there. This is the pin that came out of there and the spring. We'll take a close look at that. Well, I just wanted to give you a close look at the Gen 3 third generation smart key. This is the wafer assembly, and right here we're in the position where we could actually reset the key. These little notches on these little sliders here, sliding wafers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slots. That's the depths of the key. Those little projections on the key pin would lock into these various heights, various slots here, and that would determine and lock in the key bitting, because this thing would slide back, and then whatever heights are on the key pins, they lock into these various slots. Here's one of the key pins, the one that I took out. You can see this little projection. That's what locks into the wafer. You can see it's hollow inside, and that's where the spring would go. Here's another shot of the key pin. This surface here is what actually interfaces with the bitting on the keys. The key lifts this up to various heights, and this projection locks into the wafers. Here's a shot to show you that I've removed the key pin from this 5th chamber. See, they're all still here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Here's another shot to show you that that chamber is empty. I took the key pin out. That's all I want you to notice, and it's put on the decoder. Notice that all these other 4 key pins with their little notches, little projections, are raised to the maximum height. Now I've turned on the decoder. You can see the 4 key pins, and here's the empty slot, and here's the mirror right in here. So the mirror is going to show us, it's looking out at us. So when the other assembly, the wafer assembly, is put on there, then that's what we're going to be looking at. Here's a close-up shot of the mirror. Another close-up shot of the mirror in space 5. Here's a shot with the, I don't know what to call this thing. I'll call it the wafer carriage or the slider. And you can see here in space 5, there's no pin, no key pin. They're here. This is 4, 3, 2, and 1 space. And this is what, a D03. This is the 3rd generation smart key. Notice the sidebar is retracted here with this particular key. This sidebar, unlike generation 2, is biased to push inward towards the key, which makes the picking more difficult. That's what these springs do here, is they push the sidebar in. When the correct bitting on the key is, the sidebar will withdraw under the spring tension that's under these springs. This carriage, wafer slider carriage, can move back to this position, slide back this way, and the spring compresses it that way. That's how you reset the key. Notice here's the pin and the spring that I've pulled out of that chamber. Here's another shot verifying that this chamber is empty, but I've put the whole body of the lock together. I put it inside the outer Bible, and you can see down here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's no pin in there. That's because I think you figured out we're going to put the slider in and move it up and down and show you what it looks like. This is a shot on the smart key decoder, and you can see there's no slider here. No, well, we call it a wafer. That's what they call it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is empty. The light is on because the smart key decoder is energized. Now this shot here is because this is the wafer here that's missing out of chamber 5, base 5. Here's the pin and the spring. Now I hear this is a needle point needle for a very fine needle point work, and some pinning tweezers and some keys. I just wanted to show you here, how small this little wafer is. Here you have a key sitting there for comparison. This is to show the needle point. We're going to go even closer on that. This is the point of the needle, of the needle point needle. See how, so you get an idea how small that actually is. So here's one of the wafers. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would correspond to the 6 depths available for the Kwikset key. This is the notch, the cutout, to allow, when everything's aligned properly, to be able to reset the key, put in a different key, and then it will lock into one of these 6 depths. This on the back side, this is where the sidebar goes in. Notice this is a little bit different than Gen 2, and these are some false gates here, and I'm not sure what this is. I think that's how they hold this thing. This is very, very small. Here's a shot looking at the back side of the sidebar. You can see there's the notch. Well, this is the wafer actually, but this is where the sidebar goes in, and these little false gates. Here's the biddings up here. It looks like an S2. Just another shot. I took this another different camera photo, but it looks pretty much identical, just to show you again. Now here I flipped it over so we can actually see S2. And these are the notches, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the reset notch. This is just a silly little picture to show you that I put a pin all the way through where the slider would go. Slot 5, there's the slider. So near I don't have the crochet or the needlepoint needle. This is just a push pin or a pin for sewing, very fine. Now here we are with the unit powered on, Smart Key Decoder on. See, these are the wafers, here they are, and this is the last chamber. Here's the mirror in here. So we're actually looking at the back of this one of these wafers. In this case, it's missing. So we're going to slide the wafer in and show you in a video what it actually sees. This is just another shot so you can clearly see the little mirror there. And you can see the wafer is missing, but the wafer is here, here, and here, and one is out of the picture. This is just a silly little shot. Here's the wafer I've actually pushed through on this last chamber, just to show you that it slides free, and we're going to actually take some video. Here's my pin and my needlepoint needle for a comparison shot in size. Here's a wafer sticking out of space number 5. Here's the wafer again sticking out of space 5. It's kind of cocked sideways here, and that's what happens when I push it all the way through. It slips out of its groove and slips sideways. So here we go. This is the wafer right here, and we're going to be pushing it in and recording video of what the LockTech Smart Key Decoder actually sees. Just another shot. Okay, this is a shot. We're looking at the wafer, and I think the video when it plays will actually take a pin and push this slider in. This is the pin actually pushing the wafer through the chamber number 3. Well, it's not really in the pin chamber, but it's in the where the wafer slides in and out. Now, I don't know if the video will play while I'm recording this, but I believe what you're going to be seeing is the my needlepoint needle with that very fine needlepoint hook going up and down in the wafer cavity. And we're looking through the LockTech decoder and seeing what its camera sees, and we're recording that. So that's what you're watching. Since I can't see what's being, it won't play while I'm in PowerPoint, I'm just going by the counter. So here I believe you're seeing the 6 little notches for the key pin being raised, and you see the big channel for the reset control, and we get clear of the bottom of the pin. So we've seen the whole wafer being lifted up through top to bottom. Here we're looking at another sequence of another video recording of doing the same thing, lifting up the wafer, and you can see it go by. Okay, here I've reassembled the lock, and I'm going to have the lock decoder on, and I'm sliding through positions. I'm starting at the rear, space number 5, and I'm pulling the decoder out of the lock. So we move to space 4, and we move to space 3. This key was cut at 65432, so you can see as we move forward into the out of the lock, we're looking at different heights of the wafer. That's how this thing works. It looks at different heights of the wafer. Okay, here I've reassembled the lock. I've cut a key, put it in there. It goes from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're looking at 6, space 5, depth 6. We're moving on. Now we're looking at depth 5. We're sliding out, sliding forward, coming out of the lock. Now we're going to be looking at depth 4. We're still coming out of the lock. We're going to be looking at depth 3. And then we kind of keep, it's hard to pull it in and out smoothly. And here we are looking at depth 2. Now I'm going to reverse it and push back in. It's kind of hard to push back in because the key has to bring everything up to the maximum lift, so it gets a little jiggly and stuff. It's difficult. Thing that you want to notice is that the wafer is next to the key pin, so you can see through the hole. Sometimes you see a spring, so you see the wafer is right next to it, so you have to look at through that hole in the wafer that's being right next to it. So it kind of takes a little bit of practice to look at. So there's what we're back at position space 5, 6. Okay, what I've done here is I put in a depth and space key, and I reset the lock to that depth and space key that were all 5 were 1 cuts. So you're watching a 1 cut, a 1 cut, a 1 cut. You know, when the lock has been changed to that key cut. So I'm pulling it out, pulling the depth this decoder out, and I think around 33. Well, I'm looking at a counter because I can't see the video. Now I'm trying to push it back in, and you're going back down, back space 4, 3, 2, 4, ending back at space 5. And pretty soon I dim down the video here just to show you the dimming function of what's going on. And here I'm going to start looking at the magnify function just to show you what that does. So I magnify in and out. Doesn't help a whole lot. Dimming, brightening doesn't help a lot. And I'm back where I was. Okay, I'm just giving you another look. The disassembled lock is wafers raising 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the big semicircular notch that would fit in the reset position, and you can see my pin lifting it up. Okay, I thought this might be instructive to look at the 2 different types of wafer. This is the 2nd generation wafer. Notice the notch here. This is where the sidebar goes. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 where the key pin would lock into to determine the height necessary for the operating key to work. And this is the big semicircular notch that allows for reset. If you look at the Gen 3 wafer, you still see the same 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. But notice the V notch here for the Gen 3, because that sidebar is biased inward, and over here in the Gen 2 the sidebar is biased outward. So as you rotate the cylinder, the sidebar is forced in. But in this case, when you get the correct key, the sidebar is biased inward, so it automatically falls in here, and then you can turn the key. Here's a look at the back side of the wafers. The Gen 2 wafer, these are little false gate notches. This is where the sidebar would drop into. Little false gates here. Looking at the Gen 3, you can see it's an S2 and it still has the same little, it's actually got less false notches, so that's another way to tell. It says S2, and the cutout for the sidebar is much different, because remember that this sidebar is biased inward, so when you have the correct key lifts, the key pins are at the right height based on where they're set in these notches, then the sidebar will fall in. Whereas in Gen 2, it's a rotation. You apply torque trying to turn the key, and when it's correct, then the sidebar will slip into the notch. So it's a different setup. This one is harder to pick, and you know, we've seen Lock Picking Lawyer, and I think a few other people pick 3rd generation, because you have to go in and press on the sidebar to give it more bias so you can bind up the pins. So thanks for watching. I hope you found it interesting to understand what you're actually looking at with this LockTech Kwikset Smart Key Decoder. It takes a bit of practice to understand what you're seeing. If you use the little wafer depth indicators, you can see, but just remember that to look for the wafer that slides up and down on the right side of the hole that you're looking through. So thanks for watching. I hope you found that useful.